let's get to Ole Miss. I'm going to let you start it off with the predictions, though.
All right, so Ole Miss this year has a very favorable schedule when you look at some of the teams that they play. They do have a couple of tough games, but Ole Miss, they really sold their soul for this year in the transfer portal.
I agree.
They brought in a lot of big names. Now some of them they lost just because they either couldn't pay them what they were promised, or maybe some other situations arose. But did take let's see, they did try to get Tyler Barron. He was there for a little bit, and then Tyler Barron just kind of bounced around because he wasn't getting paid enough. But,
I think he ended up at Miami.
Yeah, he's at Miami, going to get beat by Florida in week 1.
Bro went to like 5 different places this spring, man.
He went to Ole Miss. He went to Louisville.
And then I think he went somewhere else before he went to Miami. Like, it was crazy. That dude's went everywhere.
Yeah. But Ole Miss this year, start off against Furman in week 1. You get a win there. You play against MTSU in week 2. You get a win there. You travel to Wake Forest in week 3. This is not the Sam Hartman-led Wake Forest Demon Deacons. You go to Wake Forest and you get a win there as well.
At Wake Forest? That's crazy. No,
kind of like Vanderbilt going to Wake Forest, but
whoa.
Georgia Southern week 4, you get a win there, and then you start your conference play after that at home against Kentucky. You get a win in that one before you travel to South Carolina and get a win there. And I'm not going to say blowout in either one of these games, but I think it's at least 2 touchdowns that Ole Miss wins by in both of those games. I just don't see it being,
if they show up ready to play.
Yes.
If they end up being one of those teams that play down to their competition, could be a completely different story with those 2 teams.
But let me say this that I didn't hit off the top of the broadcast here with Ole Miss is I am a big believer in Matt Corral, and he's got a lot of talent around him. And
Matt Corral or Jackson Dart?
Oh, it is Jackson. Man, Matt Corral was what, 3
years ago? You went back. Yeah, I was going to say, you went back a little bit.
Man, that was like 3 years ago. Yes, Jackson Dart. Thank you for that.
Yeah, you're good. I was like, I'm a believer in Matt Corral too, but I don't know how he's doing with the Panthers organization right now.
But no, Jackson Dart, he had a great year last year. There was times that his offensive line just didn't help him out as much as he needed them to. And, a lot of people said that the loss of Quinshon Judkins was huge, and it is. But I think Ulysses Bentley right behind him is just as talented. So I really don't think that running back position is going to fall off as much as people think.
Yeah.
All right. LSU at LSU on October the 12th. We talked about this in our LSU prediction. This is going to be a tough game. It is more than likely going to be a night game. But there is still some unknowns around the LSU offense and defense. So I'm going to give Ole Miss the win in this game. It's going to be tough, but I think
a whole lot of green dubs on this schedule.
Yeah, I think Ole Miss squeaks one out there. Oklahoma, after a bye week, I think this is a great spot for Ole Miss to play against Oklahoma.
See, this is how a bye week should be set up. We've done so many predictions where there's a bye week before Furman.
Yeah.
It makes no sense, but this one is set up perfect for Ole Miss here.
Yeah, so I've got Ole Miss winning against Oklahoma. You get Arkansas at this point in the season. Sam Pittman may or may not be there. Either way, Ole Miss gets a win there.
Is he doing it? Is he going all the way?
Georgia on November the 9th. It's going to be a huge game.
They get him at home.
They do get him at home. But Georgia is just too much for Ole Miss in this game.
You're no fun whatsoever. Whatever.
So I've got Ole Miss first loss against Georgia there. But you do pick up Florida at the end of the season. At Florida, we don't know where Florida is going to be at this point. Both of us think that Florida is going to be falling off the table at this point.
But look, hear me out. Once again, after the emotional loss in your scenario, they get the bye week to regroup before they head to play in the swamp, which I think is a massive. I think it could be a little chilly. Now, it's not going to be cold in Florida, but it could be a little chilly being November 23rd. But, man, what a setup. What a setup with the bye weeks for this Ole Miss team. I mean, 1, it's a workable schedule, and 2, to get the bye weeks when they got them, I think couldn't be a better advantage for Ole Miss.
I completely agree, which is why I think they go down to Florida and they get a win.
There it is.
Then you get the Egg Bowl, which unfortunately is not on Thanksgiving Day.
Like if you don't squat like a dog and piss in the end zone, you win the game, right? Like,
yeah, you absolutely win that game. But this is gonna be a fun game. You've got Lane Kiffin versus Jeff Lebby, two high-powered offenses. I think that this is going to be a really fun game. Anything can happen, but I do think that Ole Miss, especially with the game being at home, pulls it out. I've got them going 11-1 this season in Lane Kiffin's farewell tour at Ole Miss. So.
Robert tunes in on paper. See, me and Robert actually think a lot alike right here. On paper, Ole Miss should be competing for the SEC championship game and a playoff spot, but with so many transfer portal players, how will these players mesh with one another? What egos take over? One, I think Ole Miss, Lane Kiffin, has a lot to do with the whole egos not taking over thing, and that's why you've seen their best running back leave.
Yep,
I think now, but I agree with you. So clear this, clear all the. Why is just get it off the screen.
Let me real quick give my my.
Oh yeah, you gotta do best case and worst case. So go ahead and do that, but because I do have some things I gotta say.
So absolutely, the ceiling for this team is 12-0. I just think that it's unlikely with Georgia on the schedule. The floor, and this is where I like Robert's comment there. Will the transfer portal players kind of mesh together? That's a big thing that in some cases we have seen them not mesh together like they need to. So if in Robert's scenario they don't, I can see this team going 8-4 with losses, or not. I'll say 7-5 at absolute worst, with losses to LSU, Oklahoma, Georgia, Florida, Mississippi State. That is absolute worst case scenario. Because
Mississippi State, because it's the rivalry, right? I mean, because I don't think it's really even possible. Okay, yeah.
Yes, and Florida, because you do get that game at home. You mentioned you're coming off a possible emotional loss to Georgia. Yes, you get a bye week. But could that be? We talked about it with Florida. Where is that one game that we feel like Florida could win in that brutal 5-game stretch at the end of the season? Could it be Ole Miss? Maybe.
Could be. Get this off the screen. Get it off the screen, bro. Somebody just likes Lane Kiffin's what I'm hearing. Whatever. Get it off the screen, bro. Come on. It's still there. Thank you. All right. So Ole Miss is literally last year's Michigan.
Really?
This year's Ohio State. Ohio State and Ole Miss are so similar this year as far as what they did in the offseason to try to make things work. Will it work out for them? I don't know. That's a great question, Robert. But I'm going to keep this short and sweet. I think they go undefeated. I think they win all these games. You can go ahead and just slap them up there. Go ahead. Show them all the green dubs. Go ahead. Yep, absolutely. I'll talk about it. Go ahead. Keep on. Just to prove them that I'm not just talking. Go ahead. Boom. I think Ole Miss goes undefeated. I think they're 12-0 in the regular season. And I get it. Like, I know I just told him that I think he likes Lane Kiffin. I think I do too. I don't know. It's crazy. But I like to hate him. Look, Georgia is going to be one of those highly emotional games that we talked about. Remember how last year's game went? That's got to be on the minds of a lot of those players. And I know it's on the mind of Lane Kiffin. Remember the last time when Lane Kiffin said, hold your popcorn, whatever, against Alabama, and then got freaking slapped? I'm just saying, like, I feel like if Lane Kiffin's going to grow as a coach, it's that Georgia game. It's about coming back, keeping your mind straight. Now, I do not see Ole Miss going undefeated the entire way and winning it all. I feel like they'll actually lose the championship game to Georgia because in my scenario, the way it's going to work out, and y'all find out. But I've got Georgia and Ole Miss seeding each other in the SEC championship. But a lot of this kind of comes down to who they're playing. I mean, let's be honest. Ole Miss got such a workable schedule. They got Oklahoma and Georgia. They got the least of the two that they had to play, right, between Texas and Oklahoma. I think they got the betterment of that. And then they're dodging Tennessee. They're dodging Alabama. They're dodging Missouri. They're dodging a lot of really high-quality teams. I'm not as high on LSU as a lot of folks are, but I do think that will be a fun game. But I think, again, last year, that was such a shootout. They'll remember that. Again, Justin, just agreeing with you because that's all he does, and that's totally fine. I don't care. Like nobody's going to predict Ole Miss to go undefeated because of that Georgia game. I want to be a little different. I'm tired of giving Georgia just these undefeated preseason predictions because I just feel like anybody could do that, in a way. And I do feel like Georgia's going to lose one in the regular season, and I think it's this game. I think Georgia was really close to losing one last year with how easy their schedule was in the regular season, and they ended up losing to an Alabama team who I didn't feel like was really that good. This year, Georgia has a lot more of a tougher schedule. I don't see them going undefeated. I really don't. That's just me. That's my personal opinion. If Ole Miss has any opportunity to do this, it is this year. There's no other. Now, obviously, they could still make the playoff losing to Georgia. They could honestly still probably win or make the SEC championship losing to Georgia, depending on how all the other dominoes fall. But if Ole Miss is going to do it, and especially with it being what they've done in the offseason, me and you both kind of agree Lane Kiffin's out of here after this year. And I just think it's got to be this year. It's got to be. You get Georgia at home. You're going to have the bowl. What is that place called? What is the place called? I'm blanking here.
Egg Bowl?
No, not the Egg Bowl. That's the rivalry. I'm talking about Hottie Tot. What's Ole Miss's field name? Or
Vaught Hemingway
Stadium. Thank you. That place is gonna be rolling. The Grove. Is it the Grove?
Yeah. I think you're right.
I think it's the Grove. Anyways, that place is gonna be rocking. Their tailgates are off the charts. If you've ever been to a freaking Ole Miss game, their tailgates are insane. I'm just saying, like, if they can roll into Georgia being 8-0, 9-0 at that point, look out. Ole Miss is coming, and I don't think they're gonna let that mistake happen like happened last year. As far as just getting blown out the water. Who knows? Like I said, I was going to keep the prediction short and sweet because I do have a pretty hot take on that. But Justin comes in and says this is a long shot, but you could be right. I could be, and I could be completely wrong, and that's fine. I eat my words. I'm on a podcast. I'm saying it. That way you have it forever. I'm just saying nobody else is going to do this because of that Georgia game sitting the way it sits. And I'm just tired of giving in to Georgia. Like, I feel like somebody's going to beat Georgia. It could be us. Could be Ole Miss. Could be Alabama. Georgia's got a tough schedule. I'm telling you.
And we'll get to Georgia next week. So,
yeah, Robert tunes in. I'm intrigued with the LSU this year. The defense is garbage. I think they're still going to be garbage. However, it should be better with the new defensive coordinator, Blake Baker. Baker? Is that from All-American? Coach Baker? I'm joking.
Maybe so.
Joking. It's tough playing in Death Valley game to watch. It is. It is tough unless you're Tennessee. It is tough to play in Death Valley. So, Matt Stone even comes in here, says easy schedule and they're real good this year, but I can't stand Ole Miss. Both my parents and half my family went to Mississippi State. Go to HE double hockey sticks, Ole Miss. I hope they lose at least 3. I feel you, man. I'm sorry, my man. I didn't mean to ruffle your feathers like that. I just look if Ole Miss honestly this goes a long way in how I feel about Lane Kiffin too, right? Because if he doesn't get it done this year. Is he really that good of a coach?
That's true. That's very true.
He can't recruit. Now, he blames that on being at Ole Miss. So that's why they went to the transfer portal, Robert, is because he can't get these guys, from high school. So he's having to pick these kids up from the transfer portal. He's kind of built this team the way Michigan, we said at the beginning of the prediction, they sold their soul this year. It's exactly what Michigan did. It's exactly what Ohio State's doing right now. Very possible you can see Ole Miss and Ohio State not playing for the national championship, but very much in the playoff and could be facing off against each other in the round of 8 or however that playoff works out. But whatever.
So I am going to, and I know it's going to really, really sound like I'm a Lane Kiffin lover, but I am going to defend him on the recruiting part for this. All right. So have you ever considered Ole Miss a national title contender or Mississippi State? For that instance either. No.
Have I ever considered Ole Miss? I've actually considered Ole Miss over Mississippi State, even before Dak Prescott. Yes. I mean, Ole Miss had kind of been flirting with top 10 every year. I think back of Hugh Freeze's tenure at Ole Miss, and they just seemed to be kind of like that Auburn team that surprised Alabama, I think, a couple years in a row, maybe even 3 or 4 years that they were beating Alabama. And so, I mean, I've always had a higher level of respect for Ole Miss, but for Mississippi State, I've never really ever looked at them as a title contender.
But look, when you look at those two teams right there, your recruiting grounds are being won by teams like Alabama, by Auburn, by LSU. You even go into some Texas A&M.
Yep.
Those teams
no, they're in a terrible spot.
That are national title contenders. So it is hard to win those recruiting battles. So I think that's where Lane Kiffin has done a great job of hitting the transfer portal and getting guys, because he feels like that's his way of having success.
Yeah, and now you're losing Memphis to Tennessee because Tennessee's kind of built their way back up, and Tennessee's dipping in the in-state kids, even all the way at Memphis. Tennessee's pulled several guys from Memphis in the last couple of seasons. So
I'm not going to say that he is a bad recruiter, and I do think that if he's in a different situation, maybe Florida, for instance, that's
where we all think he's going. So
yeah, I think that he can have success as far as recruiting goes. We'll see. But, both of us agree this is his last year at Ole Miss, especially if they have the success that we think that they will.
Pick on me, teacher. I'm raising my hand. Come on.
Go ahead.
All right, thank you. So does it all change if he gets it done at Ole Miss? Because at that point, he's at the top of the pinnacle. He probably has a job for life. Does he leave that? Or does he only leave if he doesn't get it done at Ole Miss?
I think he leaves regardless.
You think he leaves regardless?
He has stated numerous times that he does not like Oxford.
Okay. Fair enough.
So I think that he leaves regardless, even if he does get it done.
I thought maybe it's a little bit different, because if you won the Natty at that point, you're looked at as a legend at that university. Stay there and enjoy the rest of your 20 years coaching and not have any expectations on your shoulder. You know what I mean? Like, I guess that's the way I was looking at it. But if he goes to Florida, he kind of resets back at zero. I mean, obviously but I think you're right. It kind of looks a lot like Nick Saban, right? Where he won the title at LSU, went pro a little bit, then went straight back to, Alabama. Yeah, I think I agree with you, actually. I think he does.
So we've already got your ceiling, because obviously they're 12-0. What do you think the floor for this Ole Miss team is?
I think the floor is 9-3. I think they'd lose to Georgia. I think they could lose to LSU. And then I'm going to say one or the other between Oklahoma and, I guess, Mississippi State. I don't think they lose to Mississippi State whatsoever. I just think if we're doing floor here and things hit the absolute fan for this team, which 9-3 for a floor is pretty freaking good. So I'm going to stick to 9-3. I have a good feeling this team's going to be good with the schedule that they got. If not, Lane Kiffin could get fired, honestly. Like, if they go 7-5 in this year with this schedule, holy crap, what a miss. So I just think, 9-3 is the absolute floor for this Ole Miss team.
Yeah, I think that's a fair floor right there. I went 7-5 just because, like Robert said, we sometimes don't see these transfer portal players mesh the way they need to.
Well, no,
so that is
7-5 is fair, because let's be honest. Furman, Jackson Dart twists his ankle like Aaron Rodgers, out for the season. What happens?
Yeah.
No. I mean, that's why the games have to be played. I mean, I like doing predictions because you kind of get an idea where everybody's head's at before the season starts. But at the end of the day, the games have to be played. So, it is what it is. But, yeah, I mean, anything could absolutely change any of these trajectories. That's why I love when people come in here like, November 30th, somebody's going to comment on this video and be like, wow, you're way wrong. Well, okay, wrong? No, we had no idea what they were going to do. But this is just what I'm expecting. And I wanted to be a little different and choose Ole Miss over Georgia, because I know nobody else in the country is going to do that. So, sorry.